got the red light on, so that means we're going. Ian Pont, thank you very much for joining me. Nice to have you here. We spoke on the Guerrilla Cricket podcast the other day, and it was like, brilliant, good. There's the in that I can sort of utilise to get in touch, mate. How's things? How are you?
Yeah, good. I mean, this lockdown's an absolute shocker, as we know. Groundhog Day, I guess. And the problem is, if you're a cricket coach, you're shafted, aren't you? Because you can't coach them indoors. Although we are looking at these remote Zoom things to coach people. So maybe that's out of adversity, sometimes there's a mother of invention, isn't there? So maybe there's a future for remote coaching.
Well, look, I think there's plenty of scope for that sort of style. And then for me, look, I think that the massive benefit of this, while cricketers have kind of done a pre-season almost in this country, which is the worst thing, a pre-season and no game time, which is the worst thing for them. But there is a chance to work on your other skills, to work on your mental and your emotional, and maybe for some of them it is a good layoff in the context. But certainly working on mental and emotional stuff can't hurt either, can it?
Well, no, I mean, as well, you know yourself, the mental aspect of cricket is, I think, the most important part of all, because unless you absolutely are able to control emotions and feeling and how everything works for you, it's very difficult. Sometimes, as you know this, we both know this, we've been into changing rooms. There's an eclectic mix of characters. Someone's a joker, someone's a wallflower, someone says things out of turn, someone never says anything. And that web of tension that you get in a changing room is really hard to replicate. But the bottom line is, what's in your own head, self-talk stuff. So I know a lot of guys do meditation and they try and just basically just get away from the game of cricket. As weird as it sounds, and you'll understand, as a professional cricketer, if you 24/7 cricket, that is not healthy. I mean, it just is not healthy, because you've got to have that balance. And actually, at the end of the day, you retire and cricket doesn't exist anymore in a playing sense. So, yeah, this lockdown is a test, in a strange way. And you can actually start to think about mental processes to help you with your cricket.
No, look, I think it's a real test, and I've spoken about many of these sort of things prior on some of these 108s in regards to, look, my ego was wrapped around my playing ability for a lot of, for almost all of my career, probably all of it. And so when we weren't playing, when there was an injury, gee whiz, I didn't feel particularly great. You didn't have a long playing career. You spoke about the other day on the podcast that you probably couldn't get where you wanted the ball to go quite as often as you wanted to. How did you, like, in that time though? You knew you had something special. You started as a batsman, finished as a bowler, and then kind of finished, if you like. How did you, mate? It's frustrating when it doesn't go where you want it to. Firstly, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm slightly over-egging it. I mean, of course, because I could control where the ball went. But I mean, the difference is that the higher up the food chain you go, the less bad balls you can bowl.
Yeah.
And there comes a point in which, if you're bowling a bad ball and over, you're not going to have a long career in the game, because that's a fact. Great players are going to take you to pieces. And the top players in the world are going to feast on that. They're going to just sit back and wait. They're going to acknowledge you're going to bowl a good delivery. Let's be honest. I still play club cricket, and there's guys at club level who bowl you an absolute jaffa, and it's almost by mistake.
Yeah.
And it will get you out, because it's a great delivery. But they are few and far between. And when you go up that chain, and so I always think I had a bad ball in me, and that was the problem. And being a sideways kind of slingy Sean Tate type bowler, mine was always full down the leg side or short outside off stump, which was the correction. And they were both 4 balls. And the secret is to eliminate those, not to make your good balls better. Just eliminate the bad ones. Then I think you have a lengthy career. And also, Ian, I played at a time at Essex when they were county champions, and Gucci was there, and I wasn't breaking into that side in a hurry.
Yeah.
And at 27, I just thought, do you know what? There's going to be more to life than just playing cricket. And I could have hung on. And actually, with T20, I'd have been well suited, I think, to T20. But had that been around, I'd have probably been like trying to play till I was 43 or something, trying to earn some shekels. But yeah, it's a hard decision to pull the stumps up at the end of the day. But sometimes you have to be realistic.
What was it like? Because you've got this gas, you've got the speed at that age. You're sort of those years while you were with that S16. You've got all this gas, and then there's a frustration from your teammates because another 4-ball, and there's a frustration from you because another 4-ball, and then all of a sudden you bowl a beauty. I found that I would get more angry at myself after having bowled a beauty after bowling 4-ball, after bowling 4-ball. It was the good one that would frustrate me the most. Is there any sort of familiarity in that kind of feeling?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, you get loads of great advice, don't you? Like, pitch it up. I mean, this, I'll try that one this week. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, don't bowl short. Okay. I mean, those comments are made by frustration from your teammates. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have played professional cricket unless I could control the ball. But it's that there's an X factor here. I mean, you played international cricket. You had a great career. Given your personal circumstances with your back and stuff, and you battled through. Sometimes people go through their careers, almost unblemished, brilliant career, absolutely fantastic. The rest of us, we're struggling on the sidelines trying to make it work. And things like bowling a poor ball, you're right. When you then bowl a crackerjack delivery, you're thinking, well, that was it. I've just got to do a lot more of those, really. And it is, you're right. It's frustrating. I mean, but for me, and we spoke on the podcast, about pace. In my heart was always pace. And I would actually rather get 5 for 60 in 10 overs than 1 for 27. That was my mindset. I wanted to take wickets because I was a strike bowler. So I was used in small doses. I was the battering ram rather than a scalpel. I was someone that was going to come in and try and blast out the top 3 and then probably graze in the outfield for 2 hours. My career was always going to be as a bit part player, never as a front line, because I don't think you can just play blasters the whole time. It's part of the reason I think, as fantastic a bowler as Mark Wood is, it's part of the reason that his career slightly suffered, because there's people around him who are more surgical. And cricket is a real mix of characters. But you're right, Ian, going back to your original point, so frustrating to bowl a great ball and then a shower of rubbish in between.
There were times when I'd be walking back to my mark and it would be like, I'd either go, yes, I found it, like something's just clicked. When you're struggling for the rhythm and all of a sudden, I didn't even feel that one came out. It was lovely. There's somewhere between that and then just hating, like, why can you not do that every single ball or just somewhere near it? And then the next delivery's okay, and the next one goes for 4, and all of a sudden you've disappeared again, and you're not seen at the bowling crease for a wee while. Were you used in that team? When I was saying you didn't know where it was going, so at the initial, but I didn't mean it quite as blunt as that. Apologies, and I've heard you pick up twice on the back of that, so apologies on that. But were you used the right way? Do you think they had a grasp on the shortness of a spell, and then get him in and get him out, who you were used with at the other end, like who partnered you when you were bowling?
No, great question. And I think it varied at different levels. Like when I played county second team cricket, I'd be the frontline bowler and try and potentially bowl as many overs as possible, because I just under first class level, I'd take a lot of wickets. Moving into first class cricket where guys can actually play, and during the 80s, I'm not talking about like when I used to play, but during that period, you'd have people like Joel Garner and Viv Richards who were at Somerset forever because the scheduling was different. So the overseas players were very loyal. And I think that the challenge for a young bowler is, as you said, about having spells. Luckily, Keith Fletcher was captain at Essex. And Fletcher was one of these tacticians. I mean, he was a great chess player mentally in terms of how cricket was played. He almost took me off before I bowled a bad over. I do remember a game once where I actually bowled quite well, and he said, take a rest. And I only bowled 5 overs. I was just getting into it. I thought, this is great. And he said, you're just about to bowl a bad over. And I was like, what? And he managed me really well. The downside, and this is absolutely true, if you look at my first class think I played 28 first-class games, 20-something one day. So, I only got 91 wickets in all. But if you look at the games I played, all of them were on flat wickets. Because what happened, if it was green, you played an extra batter.
Play a little nibbly seamer.
Yeah. But the point was, if you were picking 11 and you had 13, they would always say, well, it's going to nibble. We're playing extra batsmen because we don't need 5 bowlers.
Yeah.
So whenever it's flat as a pancake, Ian, come and have a bowl. Cheers. So most of my career was on pretty flat decks, to be fair.
Yeah. So you got out. You got out early. It was your choice. Your choice, I guess, to I'm not going to say give up on it, but you sort of chose that, right, I could be doing, as you said, you could be doing better things with your time. This is sort of, you're sitting around on someone else's whim kind of thing. It's like, whenever you call, I'll be there, but you can't live your life like that to an extent. So you knew you could do some stuff with your arm. You knew you could throw. So you went and looked at baseball. How did you make the ins in baseball to know the right people? How did you get to those that part?
Well, this is a long story, but I won't make it long. My brother Keith, who played 200 times for us, our careers overlapped by a couple of seasons, and we both played a game. Actually, my first class debut for Essex, which was down at Taunton. Yeah. And coming back, we were driving the kit van. In those days, you used to drive down. There was no team coach, and we loaded up the transit van full of everybody's kit. And it was my turn, and actually, so I'll come with you. And we drove the van back from Taunton to Chelmsford. Yeah. On that journey, I said to him, wouldn't it be amazing if you could find a sport where you can just earn from throwing a ball or just throw in full stop? And he said, well, baseball, they do. And literally, that was the first conversation. And off the back of that, the only team that I knew was the New York Yankees. And that was the only team I'd ever heard of because I never followed baseball. So Keith set about trying to contact the New York Yankees. In those days, no internet, obviously. Yep. No WhatsApp. There no Zoom meetings. It had to be the old-fashioned letter or phone call. Yeah. And through a friend, journalist who works at the Sun newspaper in London, they managed to track down the chief scout of the Yankees and said, listen, there's this guy in the UK who can hurl a ball as hard as anybody you've got. Would you have a look at him? And this letter came back saying, yeah, come over. And I ended up in 1986 going to the New York Yankees in September and having a private tryout at the stadium. They've since changed the Yankee Stadium, but the old stadium. Yeah. And I'd never, ever thrown a baseball in my life. I'd never worn a mitt in my life. I mean, I'd never stood on a mound in my life. Yeah. And I had a tryout with them, and it was bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre. But it came about, which was your question, from thinking, who do we know? And we didn't. And I think in those days, going back 30 plus years, you could probably do that. But today, I'm not sure it would work. I'm not sure you could actually try and do that. But it was of its time. But it was a very interesting moment, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just the other day, I was talking to one of the guys that's involved in New Zealand baseball and involved in the professional setup in Auckland. And he said now there are scouts based everywhere. And he's a scout for a few of the clubs. And so it actually seems now there is a better chance, if you like, of getting an easier way of having a trial than maybe back then, which is bonkers because so many more people want to just chuck a ball and earn some cash. Now you had a short time in the US and played a preseason game like a warm-up, a spring game of baseball. Give us a little run through how that worked and you put yourself on the line there. You've sort of backed yourself and said, all right, well, let's give this a go. But there's ego attached to that. There's a big chance of getting hurt mentally.
Oh, listen, I think you don't play sport unless you're prepared to fail. I mean, that's, and also people are paying to watch you. Ultimately, if you're going to be a pro, and they have their moments.
They want to watch you fail too. Jeez.
Well, especially if you're in opposition, and sometimes your own fans do, and everyone has an opinion. That's the issue. But look, the thing about the baseball is I had no concept of whether I'd be good enough. All I knew is I could hurl a ball really, really hard, And I was curious to find out how it stacked up. So when I went, I ended up at the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, I had 8 tryouts. So I ended up, and they said, look, come for 10 days. And there were 109 professionals all camped out at this hotel, and I was the 110th. And they basically had to make decisions on them within those 2 weeks. So spring training, we're talking about maybe March time, end of March.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, in these days, Ian, when you had a pro contract, you didn't have a 12-month pro contract with a county. It was 6 months, and then you had to do something else in the winter, like hod carrier or digging the roads or working on a fruit stall. You know, it was something.
I know that. I was, when I first started, we had to have a regular job. Yeah.
And ideally, you'd have to find an employer that would allow you to leave as well, which is the other point. So there were strange times, but with that trip in particular, I ended up having a Class A game, which is a single A match, professional match. And we played, I think, we played a college, or I can't remember who it was against actually, but and I pitched in this game, but I previously had 9 days of training with them. Okay. In which all I could really throw was a fastball and a changeup. You see, I didn't understand the grips. Yeah. So when they were showing me knuckleball, curveball, it looked like an off break to me. The way they were throwing it was like an off cutter. And I thought, well, okay. Yeah. So the first time I threw a curve, I mean, it literally dropped about 2 feet in the air. And they went, whoa, you got it. And I went, well, actually, it's an off break. You know, so in my head, and a leg cutter was a curve, was a screwball, and it went into the batter's hands. So having got a bit of gas, I just threw those, and it was messing people up. Yeah. So they said, you're learning very fast. And what they didn't realise was, like, I actually kind of understood it anyway. Yeah. But look, the time I had there was wonderful. And what it made me realise was their levels of sport with their... They didn't have an S&C coach as such, like the fitness training, medical staff. I mean, they're spending millions on play. In those days, 2.1 million is a lot of money. Yeah. And what I think, I can't remember the guy's name now. It'll come to me later. But he was a third baseman, and he was the second or third highest paid player in the world at that point. And he was in the Phillies, and I had to throw batting practice to him. Yeah. Yeah. And I do remember this very vividly, because it's like having a net. You do 7 or 8 minutes of BP batting practice, and you're in a net like a cricket net, and you against one of those cutout screens that you duck down behind. And I said, what's this for? And they said, you'll find out. Yeah. Mike Schmidt, that was his name, Mike Schmidt. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah. And I pitched, and you're only allowed to throw 36 pitches, and they've got a little clicker because you don't want to throw you on. Anyway, the first 8 or 9 pitches, he didn't swing the bat. And I thought, well, who's this guy? He just watched them go. After that, he absolutely blitzed everything. Yeah. And he was just seeing what I had. Yeah. Then he just went for it. And I mean, the realization that it wasn't just about how hard you could throw. Yeah. It was about what you could actually do with a ball in your hand. Yeah. And this segues beautifully back into fast bowling. You know, speed's one thing, but you've got to be able to control it and put it in the right area. And, you know, those were things I had to learn.
Yeah, speed's one thing. And like the pitching as well, speed's one thing, but anyone can throw straight heat. Anyone can bowl kind of fast, but if you can move it, then you're in a different sort of you're in a different ballpark. If you can get the ball off the straight, cricket and baseball especially, the science with baseball grips and those extra seams on the ball, you must have enjoyed that sort of that physics lesson, trying to work with. You know, if you hold the ball right, you can get five seams overlapping as it goes through the air, as opposed to sort of having 2 if you hold a ball at cross seam. There's some fun stuff. How much did you enjoy that? Was it that one of those sort of fun bits of discovering kind of magic? Although you had an idea, but it was new magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right, it's got like a horseshoe stitching, which is like a tennis ball. So if you imagine what a tennis ball looks like with a raised seam, that's basically a baseball. Yeah. And then they've got those wonderful, we've got strings in cricket, but there's these wonderful sort of cross threads that you can really get a grip on. And also, baseball is half an ounce lighter.
A little bit smaller, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and it sits in the hand. I mean, you feel like you'd throw it 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
They float a bit more. So when they're hit, they go further, and also they seem to hang in the air longer. Yeah. So you just get a real sense of speed when you throw. But you're right, you know, any movement or finger pressures or ripping down one side of the ball does accentuate the airflow.
No, I've said this. I've said this plenty of time. That's one of my favourite things to do. You know, warm-ups used to be throwing a cricket ball with grab the mitts, and that used to be our warm-up with the Black Caps with the New Zealand team for quite a while. And that's still one of my most favourite things to do is go and grab a couple of mitts and a ball and just chuck a ball backwards and forth and throw some heat and throw some curveballs and get it off the straight. I still love that, you know, just chucking a ball about. It is just such good fun. You mentioned yeah, I mean, you love your biomechanics. You're kind of into biomechanics for cricket before that was became a bit more of a mainstream sort of scenario, mainstream topic, or a mainstream coaching point, if you like. The thing about the baseball is is there a greater and then taught earlier biomechanics in throwing in the US in baseball than there is with bowling, say here? Both crazy timing for levers and sequencing and movements. But do you think there's or is it easier, the biomechanics of throwing versus the biomechanics of bowling? I mean, you said along the lines of you weren't throwing with your whole body in that chat the other day, and then you developed that. Is there an earlier teaching without being taught, because it's just what happens when you're throwing? Is there an earlier better techniques in baseball with throwing than there is in cricket with bowling?
Brilliant question. I mean that has multiple answers. I mean, we could back this entire time.
I'm just going to have a little sip of this. So yeah, go.
I suggest you have go and have a lay down with a damp flannel. Look, the bottom line is, and this was a discovery for me personally, not discovery for cricket because that sounds too grand. But the discovery for me personally was understanding body movement, because biomechanics just means movement. Bio is of the body, mechanics is movement. It just means movement of the body. And as human beings, we all walk in the same way. So we're all different, but we're all the same. There's something that connects us all, which is how we move. We run similar ways. You know, we swim similar ways. When you swing a golf club, first thing they teach you is the swing of a club, how to hold it. Everything is taught mechanically, because humans are process-based. So if I give you a process, if I say, if you start here and end up there, you go, well, I'll follow these steps. The problem for cricket is because we've never looked at the body movement properly. No one really was teaching it. And still today, that's ostensibly true. Baseball got to grips with it, excuse the pun. And what they do is they teach the young kids early on how to throw, in inverted commas, correctly to maximize any natural skill they have. They say, well, you have a natural asset. You have good shoulder hip separation, or you have great hip rotation, or whatever it is. You have good mechanics already. We're going to enhance that. And for the kids that don't have good mechanics, they teach good mechanics. And what it means is that generation that comes through from learning the good stuff ends up being as good as can be expected. Now, that doesn't mean that someone who hasn't had coaching before, a la me, can just rock up out of the blue from London and throw a ball 90 miles an hour plus the same as those guys can. Doesn't mean that I'm wrong. What it means is that I found a different way of using what I have. It doesn't mean I've made the best use of it, but I've made the use that I've grown up with. You know, and sometimes a tree grows at an angle because there's a fence in the way and it learns to grow. But actually the best way would have been straight up, but it didn't. It grew in a different way. Same as Makarantini's bowling action and someone else's, Massis Malinga's action. Doesn't make them wrong. It just means they've adapted to how they understand it. So back to cricket and fast bowling. If you take the premise that there is a best way of doing something as humans as your starting point, you can spin off from that and find out what it is. If you don't accept that, you're not going to accept biomechanics. You're not going to accept science. You're not going to accept any part of it because you're going to say it's all natural. You're born with it. You can't learn it. And I always say it's a bit like dance steps. You know, if you're going to learn dance steps or a musical instrument, or you're going to learn how to swing a golf club, there's a way to do it that's correct. You can't just pick up a trumpet and start playing it and think, well, that sounds like a tune. You know, eventually you'll work something out, but it doesn't mean that you've learned it the right way. And this is really the big I have never heard the phrase in baseball, one size fits all. We hear it all the time in cricket coaching. Oh, it's not one size fits all coaching. Never heard them say that in baseball, because it actually is one size fits all, in the sense that there's a GPS system, there's a guidance system that allows you to make your own journey. So if you've got a sat nav in your car and you set it, I want to go from London to Leeds for some reason, I want to do that, it will say, do you want to go the pretty route or you want to go the fastest route? And what it will do, it will tell you what the route is, but you use that GPS system to guide you. So biomechanics is the GPS guidance system. Not everybody has all parts of it, but every time you bowl, there is a framework that you bounce around within, which is called style. That's your own style. Like your style of bowling would be very different to mine, but we both share core common attributes. I watched your bowling action actually today on purpose, and I can tell you exactly where your speed came from, because there are certain attributes that you had that are very, very useful for a fast bowler. And you had it.
But the thing for me is that, do you think they are, with baseball, they are more polished in terms of efficiency, of movement, in terms of sequence of movement? Do you think they are more efficient before we are as bowlers, given that kids play cricket, you know, from young to however old they first come across a coach? Do you think they are more efficient because the throwing mechanics are taught earlier? Are throwing mechanics taught earlier in baseball?
Yes, throwing mechanics are taught from day one. Okay. How to pick a ball up, how to move, how to do the crow hop, how to, you know, whatever it is, how to use the shoulder, how to use the elbow joints, all of that, rotate a cuff, everything. Also, then how to look after yourself after you've thrown. You know, so all of that is in play. The problem for cricket is, unless you accept that is possible for fast bowling, that's never going to happen in fast bowling. We're never going to coach mechanics because we don't believe that you can teach it. And the starting point really is baseball more polished. It's just that they accept, which is a truism, as you would with swimming, front crawl or breaststroke or butterfly, you know, there's a way to do it that's efficient and effective. We haven't yet come to that with fast bowling coaching. That's our problem. We will in time do it. Long after you and I are here on this planet, there'll probably somebody will go, well, that's it. And it'll all be polished. It'll be lovely. And the podcast in 50 years' time on this subject will be like, well, we did this 50 years ago. But we haven't started it, Ian. That's the problem.
I think we're still, I absolutely firstly, I think throwing a ball is easier, and well, we do it more often. We certainly throw a ball more often than we bowl a ball. So the regularity becomes familiar. So therefore, you do become more economical just through doing it. But there was a time in New Zealand at the New Zealand Cricket Academy where we lost sort of 2 or 3 years worth of bowlers who went to the academy, and they were taught biomechanically to bowl, which is great, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But these guys were changed, and this is the problem that I have. And I look at.
In what year was this? What years was
this is I was 2001, so this is sort of the 2002 to 2005, I think, somewhere in there. And we lost the crop of young bowlers, and that was basically how I ended up playing for New Zealand, because we had lost these bowlers who would have gone on to play for New Zealand, but they were all broken. And they were broken because their actions were changed almost to match this biomechanically perfect action, which looks somewhere between Brett Lee and Chris Martin in terms of biomechanically almost injury-free and as much pace as they could do it with. And we lost a load of bowlers in New Zealand. The problem being that their actions were changed, and this is the bit, is that changes can be fatal in terms of action because of injuries, because of muscle systems, because of what they're used to. But the tweaks can be accommodated, and then tweaks, and you can finally get somewhere. The then thing I put to, because and this is where I go back to the stuff that I've seen of yours. There's quite a lot of prescribed movements, if you like, in your system. This is just me sort of looking at it and wondering, how does it work for an established bowler going into your systems, if you like, because there are what would look like quite a lot of changes to make. How do you work that and stay injury aware?
Yeah. Okay.
There's a lot to unpick there, but I think I got to the question eventually.
Yeah. No. So what you're saying is how does it fit everybody if we're all different, kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, because there's your prescribed steps. These are the things you need to do if you want to bowl fast. Now,
okay.
And we all kind of do a lot of those things that are in your plan. You nail make them into smaller parts. So yes, it's digestible. How do we change bowlers, if you like, how does it accommodate the bowlers that need to make big changes to get to the steps that you think are hugely important?
Yeah, great question. Okay, I'm going to back up a long way here.
Well, not too far.
2002 onwards was the dreadful start of biomechanics. Unfortunately, everybody went down that science route without understanding what it was, how it applied, or the drills that go with it. And here's the point: you can't coach somebody, and I'll say coach rather than change, because when it comes to batting, batsmen get coached, bowlers get changed. And you know, I want to alter that word, because I coach players, I don't change them. So first things first, as I said to you, the methodology I use, the framework I use, is a GPS system. Within that, you set your own journey. So I don't say you have to go up the M1 to Leeds. That's it. There's no other route. I say the destination is Leeds. How do you want to get there? So there's a difference, okay? And that difference is there are core principles that apply to speed and accuracy together. There are core principles. And the framework I called the 4 tent pegs, and how they link together I called Russia, which is a baseball term meaning range, speed, sequence, separation, alignment. Those two things as an overarching view, if you want to switch it so everybody understands this, that's called gravity. Gravity affects all of us on this planet. We accept it's there. We still live our lives. We don't think, oh, gravity's keeping me on the... Gravity applies to all of us. So this is an issue, it applies to everybody. Within it, there's something called style, which is how you bowl, how I bowl, which is why Malinga looks different to Sean Tate, to Brett Lee, to you and me. But we all bowl the ball, and within that, we share certain... Sorry, I apologise. My phone's going to... We share certain core principles. And those core principles are things that make us consistent and fast. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that if I was going to work with an established test cricketer in his early 30s, that I would say, right then, now I've got you in my garage, I'm going to strip down your Ferrari and rebuild you into something that's better. That's not what I'm saying. There might be things a young bowler could be taught on. But a senior bowler, I mean, I wouldn't be taking New Zealand's emerging test playing group and starting to hack that to pieces. I think that's a mistake. And clearly it is a mistake.
Well, yeah, we know that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
but a lot of us kind of knew that at the time too. And it was just like, oh, what's happening here? You're turning out clones, and their bodies aren't used to this new action because they've been bowling with their action for 15 years. And you now put a new action on a body that doesn't. Anyway, yep.
Well, Ian, that's called understanding how to coach. And I don't know who was coaching then. I'm not going to call anybody out, but that shouts to me like the people doing it hadn't got a clue how to coach, because you can't just apply a scientific formula to a human being. That's not how this works. Yeah. And we all have our own style. So you have to understand what someone's style is. And you say, look, within work, I says, let's make it very personal to you. Where you created your speed from, you're a front-on bowler, where you created your speed from was something called shoulder-hip separation, which meant your hips rotated first, your shoulder was slightly delayed, and that difference is called a catapult effect. You had good arm pull, and almost effortlessly, you were able to get the ball out quickly. Now, as a front-on...
I had elastic snap. I had this elastic shoulder.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. Shoulder. It's called shoulder-hip separation.
Leave it behind. So, exactly.
Called shoulder-hip sep or hip-shoulder sep. The other phrase for that in javelin is called stretch reflex. There's 800-gram javelin. They leave it behind them. They move away from it. It creates a catapult. So the muscles are elastic. They stretch and contract. If you know that as a coach, you're trying to extend that sequence. So for you, your bowling came from shoulder-hip separation. So what you'd do is you'd make sure that you do that to the best extent possible. That would be coaching you. If I said to you, move your hips and shoulders forward at the same time, that would be changing you. And that makes no sense to me. So interpreting how to coach is very different from just blanket giving everybody the same thing.
Mm-hmm. There's a so this is where, look, I sit back and I spend a lot of time on social media, too much time, more time than I certainly should do, more time than my wife's happy with, that's for sure. But I sit back and I look at how we talk about cricket and how we talk about, oh, I wish he didn't do that and I wish he didn't do that. But there's a lot of time. For me, there's this thing in cricket punditry, commentary, sitting on a couch, whatever, that, oh, I don't think he should be playing. But no one gives us the why and who else should be playing. There's a lot of, this is, oh, he shouldn't have played that shot. Well, okay, but here's what led up to him playing that shot, and there's a reason why he played that shot. It wasn't just a shot from nowhere. It wasn't just a random event. Most of the time, there's a sequence that leads up to it, and.
Right.
And the perception that looking at a lot of what is produced on social media is kind of reactionary, and it sits in a position that is hard to digest because it's a reaction as opposed to looking at the whole sequence. Yeah. Now, don't take this the wrong way, but I there's an element that sometimes I see stuff and it's like, why aren't they doing it this way? And I understand the frustration, and I see there's a big element in a lot of the things you say that is, you're frustrated with the system. You're frustrated that some of these guys are still making some of these action errors, if you like, or actions that could be polished, that could be cleaned up. Is that a fear? Do you get really frustrated and you just can't hold it in sometimes about the small things, those bits and pieces that you can see? Am I reading what I've seen and right? Does that make sense?
It's not that I'm frustrated with those people at all. It's
not them. Yeah.
Not that in its sense. I mean, it's to point out that there's an alternate way to actually coach this stuff. And as I said, when I started 30 years ago, literally no one was talking about how to bowl faster. I mean, it's just recently in the last decade, there's been a lot more research on it, and science is now starting to back up the facts that if you do certain things like keep your front leg straight, delay your bowling arm, you can generate more speed. You know, I mean, we knew that 30 years ago. But so what Twitter's sadly an echo chamber as well. We only tend to look at the ones we want to look at. But Twitter's become this vortex of doom in a way that everybody can just criticize each other, and it looks like criticism. The difficulty sometimes is, how do you get a message across without it looking like you're being critical? I mean, it's very hard. It's very hard to, if someone's got a poor, inverted commas, a poor action or they wonder why they're permanently injured, or they wonder why they're inconsistent, or they wonder why they keep bowling the ball down the leg side. You know, generally you could show a sequence and say, well, that's why. You know, here's a video, and here are the component parts to show you why you consistently get this wrong. And it's very hard to do that without seeming like you're criticizing everybody. So it's not so much a frustration. I think it's more to say, hey, look, there are positive things here we could do. There's a positive way of actually making somebody be a better performer. And ultimately, as a coach, you're only as good as the guys you work with. There are a lot of people who have the title of coach and wear a tracksuit. But actually, I would challenge whether they are a coach at all. And what I mean by that is, do they really understand how to get the best out of that player? Not just from talking to them and giving them some tips. That's not coaching. If I want to listen to tips, I'll go to, I'll watch a DVD of somebody talking about it. That's not coaching. Coaching is actually rolling your sleeves up and saying, you are here, I'm going to get you to there, and this is the journey I want to go with you on. And providing the player says, yes, please, you can do it. If they say, no, thank you, you walk away. So the art of coaching is something I think is dreadfully lost. And it's dreadfully lost for two reasons. Firstly, by coach educators who literally don't understand how to coach fast bowling. I mean, that is my biggest beef on this planet.
Yeah. Look,
Coach
I can tell how I can tell exactly how your voice is you've got a little bit of, there's passion in it, and I can see it as well, that you have, you're not happy with the status quo, if you like.
Well, I spend a great deal of my time unpicking stuff that people have been told by coaches that is just A, not true, B, potentially dangerous, and C, can cause them either injury or not to maximize what they've got. And that's it's like firefighting. And, I'm not saying I'm the only person that understands this at all, because I'm not, but I am quite vocal in it. And also I have corrective drills that go with it. And I do not see that. If you go on any level of coaching course in the world, there will be none of them that talk about how to increase the speed of a bowler and accuracy. None of them will do that. None of them. There's lots of kind of clues and a bit of whispering behind the door, but there's nothing. There's nothing at all. And in a way, Twitter has become partly what some of the pundits do on television. The pundits on television will do a split screen and say, the reason Ricky Ponting got out that ball is this. So in a way, all I'm doing, if I do put stuff up on Twitter, is being that kind of commentator that says, yeah, I've noticed this. He could be a lot better if this happened. So, it's not a frustration so much. It's more of an observation, if that makes sense.
Is it, look, I've found myself getting in trouble. I found myself not getting in trouble. I found myself, I got angry at cricket around 2015. I got really angry because some of the things that the ICC were focusing on were way off the mark, and some of the things that were happening were way off what cricket needed to fix and what cricket needed to sort out. And I got very angry and very outspoken. And all of a sudden, I found, because I was doing media at that time, I found a lot of my media work started to dry up, and I found I wasn't getting as much and I wasn't getting as many sort of opportunities because I was being outspoken on the issues that I thought really mattered in cricket. Now, I don't want to paint you in the same brush, but is there an element that being outspoken can actually work against you in this regard, do you think?
Yeah, of course. Of course it does. I mean, if you've got a table of truth, and you tell the truth, no one's going to thank you for it. I mean, who's going to thank you for pointing out that it's a pile of poo? Who's going to thank you for saying, in my view, and it is my view, there's a better way of doing this? I mean, no one wants to know that when they've invested millions in something, and then you say, well, you're not getting the results, really.
Yeah.
The PACE program in this country, the ECB PACE program, I believe, is being shelved now. I don't think it's going on at Loughborough anymore, not in the form it was, as an example. And we don't have independent pace academies that actually achieve much. You could argue that if you took all the coaching away, you'd still have the same amount of fast bowlers in the world. And that shows that the coaching doesn't really have an effect. But you're right about the outspoken part. I mean, look, I am Marmite. Other brands are available, but you're either going to love what I do or you don't. And there's no one in the middle going, well, I kind of like some of the things he says. It's going to be, I don't agree with this, or I absolutely 100% agree with it. And as I said to you, going back to the gravity point, my personal view is it does impact on us all. There are core principles we could do. If I point that out and say, look, there's some drills that go with it, does that make me a horrible person? No, but if you keep throwing rocks at people's windows, eventually they're going to say, well, maybe I don't want you. I get that.
Or maybe they do. And is there an element that you keep throwing stones going, hey, hi, I'm over here. Hi, can you see me? Is there an element that there is a frustration that you'd love to be involved in a lot more cricket, I'm sure, coaching and et cetera. But is there an element, where come on, I'm over here. Just give me an opportunity with some of these guys.
Yes and no. I mean, I've got to the point now at my age of coaching 25 plus years that I'm actually not bothered anymore. So the way to do my own, the way to prove it is to do your own coaching and produce your own players, which I'm doing. Yeah. So eventually when these guys go on and become hopefully big names, they'll say, oh, I worked with Ian, or it was this methodology we used. And what will happen is long after my time, people will go, maybe that guy was right. I honestly believe it isn't happening in my time in terms of, in quotes, the authorities, because we're not going to change a big lumbering machine like a national board. And the only way you change these things is just go off and do it yourself, and then you're over in the corner as an irrelevance, but you're kind of an irritant because you're actually doing something that a lot of people aren't doing. End of the day, the truth is, who have you produced? As in, who is using your stuff? Who do you work with that gets better? Can you actually prove this stuff works?
Yeah.
And I can go yes to all of that.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me right in other people's eyes. It just makes me either big-headed or an irritant. And I understand that, and Twitter is the worst place in a way because we've all got a view. But do you know what? It is what it is. And unfortunately, I can't change the world. Not like I can at one person at a time, but I can't change the planet. So
I wish, going back to, and look, again, not projecting, but going back to when I was playing, I wish I could have changed how I was in the changing room because I didn't fit in the changing room. I couldn't deal with those situations and those scenarios. I've written plenty about it being a joker or a shadow. Those I was either being a dick because I didn't know what to do, or I was doing nothing because I didn't know what to do. And it was. Yeah, I wish I could have been able to change some of my personality. And then there's that other scenario. It was like, well, if I had have changed it, would I have still been able to bowl the way I did? Because I was always trying to impress those guys with my bowling because I couldn't be friends with them in that kind of a social situation. So I'd have no idea about what I would have had. Now I was having a look at I was trying to find your bowling action on anywhere last night. I was trying to find, all I could find was a throw in a final from the run out. Ridiculous. Should have been a one bounce throw, Ian. Let's be fair. That should have been a one bounce throw, and it's straight into the gloves, not far from the stumps. It's kind of freaky, but I couldn't find your bowling action. Is there any? Where is your bowling action? Where's that?
No, there is from that game. I've actually got that.
Okay.
Did you ever see Rodney Hogg bowl?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. He's my twin.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll try and dig something out. But it was just interesting, just trying to go back. And then when I was there, now, and in terms of going your own way, in terms of UPF, Mavericks, NFBA, and Express Pace, all sort of look like loads of channels that have your name attached to them quite a bit. Are they all you? Is this all you in previous incarnations, or is because what are you now? You're with
Yeah, so the National Fast Bowling Academy is the People's Academy for Fast Bowling, which is independent of the ECB.
Yeah. And where's that? Is that based here?
That's in Hertfordshire. So we're in year 2 of that.
Yep.
The Ultimate Pace Foundation was been going 9 years, mostly in India. We got a camp in Bangalore. We've been there 18 times, and now that's an online facility, which is a fast bowling library. Yeah. So you can go in and take the books off the shelf and read them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There's a year's worth of that. So that's a subscription. So Mavericks Cricket was where I started my coaching business, and that's still running. It's kind of right in the background. It's a low level thing, Mavericks Cricket. I don't coach under that name, MCI. I don't coach under that anymore. I suppose it's been superseded by the Ultimate Pace Foundation and also now the National Fast Bowling. The other one I didn't know, so that's not me. Yeah, okay.
No, it was just like you've done a lot. There's a lot of content. That is your message is out there. If that makes sense, it's there, and it's you've covered a lot of ground, and you've had success. You've had team success and individual success with players. What do you love more? Do you love a team succeeding, or do you love seeing a guy put on 10% pace and become more accurate? What's your baby, if that makes sense?
I never thought I'd be a good head coach. That was never where I was going to go. And after I did the gig in Bangladesh, they started the Bangladesh Premier League, and what they basically did, one of the franchise owners said to me, "Listen, I think you'd be a good head coach." I was like, "Okay," because I thought they were asking me to be bowling coach of this. It was the Dhaka Gladiators, and he said, "No, we want you to run the whole thing. We've found out that actually you're very thoughtful. The guys like you. You're very direct. We think you could. Anyway, long story short, we won the comp 2 years back to back, and I as a head coach, I actually enjoy. And we had a bowling coach, by the way, which was interesting. We appointed a bowling coach. So for me, I was really hands off on bowling, which is actually quite nice. Bear in mind I have a batting head as well, because I was a batter to start with. I kind of, I could do a bit of fielding, throwing. There's kind of an eclectic mix there, but I did back off and facilitate. And it actually worked really well, and I enjoyed that. And so T20, when T20 kind of came along, it, as with players as well, it gave an opportunity for a lifeline in an area that I wouldn't have necessarily considered.
Yeah.
And I was assistant head coach at with Quetta in the PSL, and we got to the final and we lost to Islamabad. But it was interesting then being an assistant coach to someone, because you then have your own views as, well, I wouldn't have done it like that, or I would have had an extra days in the nets, or we should have played more golf, or we should have done more swimming. You always have a view. And that's the trouble is that I used to bite my tongue as a player, and I don't as a coach. And the problem is, when you sometimes say what's on your mind, it can rub people. So I think if I'm going to be a coach, it should be a head coach or a development coach with individual players.
Yeah, I have this will be written on my tombstone, on my gravestone. It will be, "You never had to wonder what he was thinking," which is a positive and a negative. It's sort of, if I see something that's wrong, if I see someone misbehaving, if I see someone disrespect, I can't help myself but to which is frustrating, but it's also sort of, it's not the worst attribute in the world. But how does team coaching work, given that you have come from team coaching? For me, is about a philosophy, if that makes sense. What group are you trying to put together? What are your achievements without being in goal? Without winning the competition, what are your achievement sort of processes? How do you go into that? Did you have a philosophy? Do you have a philosophy? Do you have an ethos, if you like, that you want to do with the group of men or women?
100%. I do. And what was interesting was I didn't know that until I took the job. So we had our first press conference, and there must have been 150 people, cameras, and they said, with the microphones in front, they said, "Ian, what's your plan?" I said, "We come to win the competition." and the journalist said to me, Bengali journalist, he said, "That's very big-headed of you." And I said, "Well, we haven't come to lose or finish second, have we?" I said, "Oh, no, please. What do you think? Have we? And he said, "No." I said, "Well, then you agree with me?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, that we've come to win it." I said, "What we've got to do is we've got to implement the plans to give us the best shot." So what we did was we did a lot of research on the players, not so much the money ball idea, because I think that's overcooked, because sometimes you've got to use your eyes and work out that a player who's not informed could actually be someone to win it for you. Depends on how you use them. So we looked at the data, which is, I'm never a fan of it, but we looked at the data and we crunched it all. We ended up picking the best squad. Yeah. Then we blended that squad together with people who would only want to bat, like Karen Pollard, for example. He said to me, "Don't bat me in the first 12 overs because I won't get any runs. I need to bat at the end of the innings." I said, "Well, you might be batting at 7. He said, "Fine. The number doesn't matter. I just need to be in at this point." Other players just wanted to tee off in the first 6. Other players want to knock it around. This. So you blend all that and then work out who your best local players are, because the local players are the guys that tend to win you the comps, not the big superstars. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. We were the first franchise to realise the more boundaries you hit, the more games you're going to win. So we went out for people who could hit the fence. Second biggest thing was how many dot balls you could bowl. Wickets, yes, to a point, but it was dot ball. Boundaries first, dot ball second. So we were finding that out 10 years ago. Now everybody's talking about it. And so I think in a way, we were very fortunate. I say we because there was a group of us doing it. The local guys were kind of badgers when it came to looking up stats. And we worked out what that blend should be. But the second part is I hate team meetings with an absolute passion. So I stood up in front of them on day one. I could see their heads were down at the back, not wanting to listen. I said, "Guys, I'm going to promise you one thing here, well, at least one thing, and it's every time we win, we won't have a team meeting. So we'll only have a team meeting if we lose or if there's information to give you." And we lost 5 games that year. We only had 5 team meetings. So, the guys were really happy. And I said, we'll have nets if you want them. There'll be scheduled nets, but unless you're working on something, we're going to give you some time to yourself. And mi casa y su casa, my door's open. Please come and see me. If you're not happy with me or anything, just say it to my face. Don't say it to my back. Just say it here. It won't affect you being dropped from the team or not. It will. It won't.
It will.
It will. It definitely will.
It will.
But, or if you want to speak to one of the assistant coaches, that's fine. So we as best we could in those short tournaments of 4 or 5 weeks, we kept that circle tight but open. Mm-hmm. And I never wanted to get to a point where a player felt they couldn't perform because they were restricted. A lot of these players are way better than I was ever going to be. So. Like we had second year, we had Chris Gale for one game. What are you going to say to Chris Gale about T20 cricket? You just make sure he's okay. Does he need to eat?
Yeah. Does
he want to lay down? You're just facilitating, aren't you? So I think, Ian, my strategy always was that the guys were experts in what they were good at. If they wanted to ask my view on anything, I could help them. Other than that, let's just enjoy it because it's a short life. Just get on with it.
How did see this? I would love to go back and revisit as a fly on the wall. How and be completely outside of my body. How people worked with me, and did you ever come across scenarios where you were working against someone that was working with, I should say, and then against, in some ways, someone that's like you, that sort of that confident about what they're doing, and then have you come across coaching yourself as kind of as someone that is similar to yourself and that you'd either clash or you would get along?
No, I haven't actually. That's a very interesting comment. I haven't. The people that I've worked with in franchises have tended to be people that are quite soft. And what I mean by that, I don't mean soft as in they were a pushover. I mean they were people that were understated. Mm-hmm. Someone who perhaps held a strong view but didn't push it. They would be quietly spoken. I mean, and actually, that a lot of people like that, where there's a coach who just says the odd word to you or comes and takes you to one side, and that's good man management. I mean, that's just the way you do it. But I've not met many kind of table thumpers. I'm not a table thumper, but I mean, I have my moments. Yeah. But I don't. There are quite a few coaches out there, chilled and relaxed. But then again, I feel like I don't know them because I feel that that's the facade a little bit. Yeah. I don't have a facade. I mean, I'm a bit WYSIWYG, which is what you get. Yeah. If I'm not happy, I'll say it, and if I'm really happy, I'll doubly say it. But other than that, no. So I've not really. It's a great question. I don't think I've met me in another form yet. I mean, I might do.
What would you do? How would you coach yourself?
Probably get on with myself quite well.
No, but there must have been I don't think I'm wrong in you can piss people off. I don't think I certainly do that a lot, and I'm to my whatever. But I think that kind of when you talk or when you have a confidence in your beliefs, in your systems, in your beliefs, in your philosophies, that sometimes people can get rubbed the wrong way. And how would you deal with yourself if you two weren't getting along too well?
Because
you will challenge. If you don't believe it, you will challenge. You will ask questions, and I think through inquisitiveness and through seeking knowledge, and then to confirm, confirmation bias or the opposite. How would you handle yourself challenging yourself on something?
Yeah, I think it boils down to what's true, what's factual. But there's a saying, perception is reality. If you think something's true, you believe it is, even if it's not. And if someone then proves that your deeply held views are incorrect, are you someone that's able to say, fair enough, I'll change them all? Yeah. I mean, the likelihood is you're not. So when people get entrenched, you then have the issue. So
Yeah.
I don't think I'm entrenched.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And this is going to sound absolutely crappy. I think I'm enlightened, and I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, I think I understand how that works.
Yeah.
And if someone came to me and said, "Listen, there's a better way of doing it," I'd go, "Really? Let's have a cup of tea and talk about it."
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely want to know whether the things I'm doing are wrong, or is there a better way?
Mm.
You know, I'm not closed off to understanding that there might be something better than me, and I'm sure there is somewhere. I haven't met that person. I haven't met the methodology. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It might be someone else has got it, and they're shouting and screaming from their rooftop. I don't know.
Look, and these are why I love these chats, because again, like I said to you when we spoke on the phone yesterday, it's about getting to know the person behind the player, the person behind the performer, the what goes into making you the coach you are, and it's interesting, and so that question's never even sort of come to me with any other chats. Imagine trying to coach yourself, imagine trying to manage yourself, and it's one of those ones where you've used the label Maverick for as a descriptor, so there's an element that you see yourself as a maverick, and so there's an element that a maverick can be a pain in the ass sometimes.
Sure.
I don't think that's that's well, they can upset the apple cart to an extent. So I just wondered if you'd come across someone that was as confident with their beliefs and abilities, and how that would either work or not work. And it's an interesting one when you start looking at the people in the game. You must have come across some tough people to coach, some very stubborn, and they must have been frustrating, or how did you as a I'm going to call you stubborn. I don't think that's a bad trait, but how did you deal with those sort of stubborn people that weren't open to change?
Depends what you're coaching them for. If you're talking about doing one-to-one coaching, I can only coach someone who wants to be coached.
Yeah. When you've got a team environment, what are you doing to how are you as a person that wants to do it this way? You know, we'll get the group involved, but we're going to do it. How do you deal with that?
Well, I've had that. I had that at Dakar Gladiators. We had a certain character in our side that only wanted to bat in a certain place, only wanted to train at a certain time. They played a lot of cricket. They've been in international changing rooms. They got a lot of runs. Mm-hmm. And that's lovely for them, you know. And then what I did was I created some space so they could do exactly that.
Yeah.
We also had a bowler that just wanted to bowl 6 balls in the nets, then go off and have a massage. So that's what he did.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I've had players that want to train more and bowl more and go to nets more. So I've facilitated for that by having other people join them on a voluntary basis. So I think this is going back to this web of tension that you get in a changing room and in a squad, where you've got someone pulling in one direction, but you either stop that happening and risk pissing them off and losing the changing room, or you actually allow them some latitude and then say to the guys as well, whatever you need to do, you know, what do you need to do? And to be honest, and you know this, most of the players will rock up for training and do their bit. There's only a few characters that just want to swan off and do nothing. There's only a few who want to play golf, or they'd rather be surfboard, doing something else. And then I would just make room to allow that if it's a team environment. And I think that's personally, I think that's decent management. It's just managing people. If you say this is how we do it, and here's my box, and you have to stay in that box, that's great. And you may end up winning things, but you might end up losing a changing room. And I think once you've lost the players, you've had it.
What if, who was your Essex captain? Was it Keith?
Fletcher.
What if you had said, Keith, I'm bowling 6 balls and I'm going to go and get a massage? What if that had been different era, completely different era? How would have that worked?
That wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't. I bowled, like most people during those 80s years, who just bowled hours in the nets for no reason whatsoever, because there were no bowling machines. There was you were the bowling machine.
There was no dog sticks. There was no extra assistant coaches, etc. All those extras that there are now. We've made a good change in cricket, though, haven't we? With the amount of auxiliary staff, the extra staff. That's a good change, isn't it?
Yes.
Ah.
I remember a team photo once of the England squad, and there were 33 people, and 17 were backup staff, and 16 were players. So, I mean, I think you can get to a point where it's overkill. Going back specifically to fast bowling, and this isn't like when we did it, but we used to bowl a lot of balls in the nets, and we didn't do huge amounts of fitness in a gym. In fact, I don't remember going into a gym. I remember running a lot. I remember doing loads of running, get miles in your legs. And I remember bowling a lot to get bowling fit, because that's different to gym fitness. I would say today people are a lot fitter than we were in terms of how they look, bodies, you know, beach bodies. I don't remember lots of guys having six packs in the days I played. They were fit, but not like they look today. You can argue it either way. Are there more or less injuries in fast bowling? There are more, but is that because they bowl more? I don't know. 1 year, Ian Botham bowled 1,000 overs, 500 first class, 500 test, way more than anyone bowls today. He rarely broke down. Is he the model? No. Is he an outlier? He might be. So the difficulty is, the question is, isn't that better now we have loads of auxiliary support staff? That's why I went, yes, because I think in some ways it is. In other ways, is it cotton wooling people? Oh, I've already bowled for 25 minutes. I can't possibly, I need me massage. I need me rub down. I've got to go and do my gym program. I don't know. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate on that. So, I think on balance, it's good. On balance.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, it can't take away, as long as I guess those people are not changing the head coach's culture, the head coaches, or there's any sort of undermining. But having, look, I found, you know, having a physio travel with you, having the bowling coach and assistant coach, having the manager and the head coach, and maybe one other, if there were different people to talk to, and it gave you an outside of cricket. Time to talk, and it was that was quite a welcome escape for me, because I didn't have to be in front of guys that I hero worship even when I was playing, which is, it's kind of ridiculous. Did you have that when you were playing? Did you have guys? I mean, you had a winning team back when you were playing with Essex. Did you have guys in the change room that you go, oh geez?
Well, we're Graham Gooch for a start. I mean, and with Alan Border was our overseas. You know, I mean, you got those. It was fun at Chelmsford watching Gooch and Border bat together. I mean, Border was Aussie captain at the time, and Gooch was England captain. Jeez. And they're batting together, and you'd sit on the balcony with a cup of tea, leaning over the fence, watching them. I can't believe I'm getting paid to watch this stuff, and they're actually in the team, you know. No, of course you hear it. I remember once we played at Chesterfield against Derbyshire, early season, and I came in about number 8 in the innings, and Alan Border was in, and he had 140 at the time, 130. And Devon Malcolm and Michael Holding were bowling, and it was a green surface. I'm out. He walked out to meet me halfway, and he said to me, how do you like to play? Because he'd never seen me bat. And I said, I'm positive. He said, be positive on this surface. And he got 6 balls. I watched. He faced 6 balls, and all 6 went, because there was unlimited bouncers in the 80s. I mean, the umpires used to eat popcorn and just watch. They only got involved if you couldn't handle it. So he got 6 short balls, I think, from Devon Malcolm. He swung at 3 and missed, and he swung at 3 and hit them. I think they were 12 off the over. And I was going, what is going on here? And I'm watching the Australian captain take apart the future England test bowler in 1 over, and it was just the most surreal thing. So you talk about hero worship here, and you're absolutely right. You'd have played with Richard Hadley, though, wouldn't you?
No, I'm not that old. Jesus, come on.
I thought you might have got him at the end of your career. Sorry.
No. I didn't have that. I had Vittori and Fleming and McCullum and if I forget names, it's trouble. Oram and Macmillan and Astle, and it was guys that had played. It was just like, whoa, this is quite hard, because I'm trying to learn what they are doing and how they behave, and I don't even know how to do this anyway. So that took some time. I kind of getting towards the end. There's frustration. I mean, I think we see that there's a frustration that you'd love to be involved in cricket more, and you'd love to be coaching more, and you'd love to be changing for the better, more people. Does that Does that keep you awake? Does that sort of change your mental state in terms of the jobs that are coming up or the jobs that have at the moment? Not much. Does it change you? Does it affect you too much, or have you got a good pattern?
No, I'm okay. I mean, with regard to the fast bowling coaching in particular, what it has spawned is a lot of other coaches copycatting. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, actually, I was going to say inspired, and it sounded wrong. I think there are a lot of other coaches who realise that there's potentially another set of tools to use for their coaching. So they sometimes look at what I do, methodology, and say, "Oh yeah, I'll use some of it. I'll use some of this gravity business. It sounds like a good thing." So there are other coaches out there who have taken the scientific stuff, the biomechanics stuff, and are using parts of it. There's also coaches that are complicating the hell out of it as well. I mean, there are a couple of coaches who are making the copy and pasting from science and making it sound so that no one can understand it. I mean, it's just stupid. But so I don't get frustrated if others are being inspired to use stuff, and they're welcome to, and I hope they do. From a team perspective, you're right. There's only a certain amount of roles out there, and as more coaches retire and switch their kit for a tracksuit without having to coach in between, which is slightly annoying, there are less roles for the journeyman coaches out there. The other thing, I guess, Ian, about T20 or T10 now, crikey, that's an interesting one, is that are you going to, I'm ostensibly a technical skills coach. Are you employing a technical skills coach for T20 or T10? I don't know. If the world realizes that actually that has a value and you can make a difference in a short period of time, which I can, and that's the truth, maybe they'll start to look at technical skills. Yet we haven't got any tech skills appointed coaches at all. What they're guys is guys with a dog stick or a mitt in the nets, throwing or catching, and that's the level to which they coach. That's it. They don't have any real input into the team that is meaningful. In fact, all those faces, you could switch for another face, and you wouldn't know who people have wardrobes full of franchise kit.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. There is wardrobes. Yeah, absolutely. And many hats and many tracksuits. Absolutely, mate. Great hair. Jealous of that. Can't believe you're 59. That's just the most ridiculous thing with all that hair. Great voice, great teeth. What the heck is there? Where do you fail? Where do you fail in this front? I mean, you're doing pretty good, aren't you? Are you still playing? You're still playing?
I'm still playing. Look, the bottom line is I wish I'd have played one match for my country at senior level. One game, just one. And I tell you why. Because on a coaching CV, you are then an ex-international player. And I never thought it would be relevant. I was naive when I started coaching, thinking, do you know what? It's about how good you are as a coach that's important. No, it's not. It's about whether you played the game at the highest levels. And the fact I've been in international change rooms as a coach is irrelevant. What's relevant is how many runs and wickets did you get then? Yeah. And that, unfortunately, is what's driven a lot of coaching. It doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it, back to the frustration, a little bit frustrating. But I can't change my past. Yeah. And to be honest, Ian, on my deathbed, if someone said to me, what do you want to leave behind? And I would say a legacy. And the legacy, and again, it's all the thing I'm saying sounds stupidly grand, and they're not meant to be. The legacy being there is another way to do this that might be better than the way we're doing it. And that's all I want people to look at.
Mate, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been good fun. Thanks for your honesty. That's what I love about some of these chats is we get some honesty, and it's cool not to just rehash old performances. It's cool to kind of look at what goes into behind those performances, and what you're doing now is giving tools for people to perform. And thank you again for sharing. That's been really cool. What's up with the rest of the day then, Ponty? Another cup of tea and a lie down.
Another coffee. Mixing a bit of music. Watching some Netflix and stuff.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks heaps, and we'll speak soon. Cheers, Ponty. Hi, Ian O'Brien here. Thanks for getting to the end of this 108 with IOV. I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, please. But also leave us a message down below in the comments about what was your most interesting or favourite part of this chat. Thanks a lot. Love ya.